Hello, hello, good morning. Why is my video not on? Oh, great, Matthew and Kathleen, you're waving back to me, so obviously somebody can hear me. That's a great sign. Cool. Christian, Kayla, hello, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Okay, great, I can hear you all now. I gotta tell you, I don't know how many more Zoom calls I have to do over an 8-month period before I'm actually gonna feel confident signing into one that everything is gonna work out for audio and visuals. Cool, good morning, nice to see everybody here, that's great. And just checking, because of course I see that grid view with everybody else, just checking to see that Jason and Alex are with us. And then also my team, would be lovely to see them as well. Let me scroll through.
Jen, I know Jason's on.
Jason is on, lovely. Okay, great. Oh, there's Jason, I see Jason.
And I believe Alex is too.
Is Jason in a camper van? That's the question.
You bet I am.
I love that. That's cool. Okay, fantastic. And I see Alex, fantastic. Wow, so many great smiling faces. I love the momentum that these series are getting. Isn't it really just a true reflection of like what we're trying to build here, which is a community of people that have real relationships to be able to share experiences and their strength and hope in weathering the pandemic and leading the way to, our new travel options. It's really great to see everybody. We're a couple of minutes before 9. So we'll just wait on hold to let other people join us. But I'm glad to see Jason and Alex and Christian and Kayla with us, our panelists today. I'll introduce them in a moment once we get started, but we'll just hang on the line for 2 minutes. And thank you and good morning to everybody. Now, one of the traditions that we have in Outdoorsy internally in our company is we have this really important meeting that happens once a week with the leadership team. And Colin Gardner, who hopefully you guys know, he always kicks us off with dad jokes. So I don't know if anybody's got a dad joke they want to throw in here in our 2 minutes of silence before we start. Or maybe Claire has already put us on mute. I know that is also one of our learned lessons about how to use Zoom and the tool. But if not, feel free.
Yeah, you could always throw dad jokes in the chat. That'd be a great way to get going.
That's an awesome suggestion. A dad joke in the chat. That's cool. Colin would love us for that if we actually came up with a good dad joke in the chat. So if anybody has anyone that's not joining us today, seriously, please give us a good old dad joke in the chat function. Oh, so nice to see people's faces. This is great. I guess everybody else is learning Zoom as well, because now I'm seeing so many people live with their backgrounds. Whereas before it was just always the sea of, black backgrounds and names. So that's great. Cool. Okay. Well, you know what, Claire? I think it's exactly 9 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and get started? One of the great benefits of doing these Zoom panels, of course, is that we record the sessions and we create transcripts as well. There's so much great information. We want to make sure that you guys all have access to being able to listen to it or read it afterwards. So what we can do, because we have that as our fallback, is we can go and get started at exactly 9 o'clock and then make sure at the end we'll wrap up reminding everybody about where they can pick up those links and how they can read and be a part of it. Okay, cool. So thank you to everyone joining us today. Truly, we're really excited to have everybody here on this panel again. It's our 5th one. We started this series called Mapping the Road Ahead, I think in March, literally when the world turned upside down for us, certainly in the travel business. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time though, hello and welcome. Thank you for being a part of it. As I mentioned, this is our 5th one, and I'll talk a little bit about the ones in the past and what we're going to focus on today. But first, I just wanted to share a little bit of background and remind everybody the intention behind why we started these Zoom panel series. You know, we have always thought about Outdoorsy as a people-powered marketplace. Our job is to bring people together, share these insights, and build a business collectively. So the real heart of our marketplace are the owners, you know, the people that own these assets, RVs, campervans, teardrops, fifth wheels, motorhomes. I mean, the list goes on. There's millions of Americans that are owners of RVs. And we've always centered ourselves around this community. So when the realities of COVID hit us pretty hard, our first thought was, how are we going to protect that owner community? So we set a goal within the senior leadership team and the marketing group that we wanted to provide rapid, consistent, and valuable information and resources for our entire Outdoorsy community to address concerns and questions amidst these uncertain times, and to be a real steady resource for people that you could count on to help sort of guide that path. We've got a pretty broad and talented team at Outdoorsy. I invite you all to get to know as many people as possible. This crosses and spans marketing, product, engineering, and a dedicated community team. We pride ourselves on being a positive leadership voice for everybody here today. And I think we've done a pretty good job covering content so far about the big picture, as well as specifics that can help you today in the marketplace and trying to maximize revenue opportunities and build a really good guest experience for your customers. We feel confident about what the future holds, and I hope that you guys do as well. So just quickly, developing the Mapping the Road Ahead series really allowed us to do just that for you guys, map the road ahead. So since we kicked off back in March, we brought together some of the best industry experts to address any of your questions and concerns. It's open forum as well as a moderated panel. Please go back and check out those past panels. They're very valuable. I find myself even going back, re-listening to them because it's too difficult to consume all of the information that is presented from us or presented to us today. The first one we did was really focusing on the future outlook of the overall RV industry, rentals, sales costs, travel in a COVID world. We had leaders from RVIA attend that one. Our second panel covered specifically what to do and where to go related to RV travel destinations. What would be different in national parks, state parks, and private parks. And we had excellent leaders from the National Conservation Association, and campgrounds. And our third panel focused on the needs of a new generation of travelers. I'm sure you guys are also hearing this as well. Camping, outdoor recreation, and an outdoor lifestyle is the new it thing. And so we brought together a panelist who really dove deep into what do younger people, millennials in particular, what are they looking for in the types of vehicles they want to rent and the kit that they need while they're out there. So the last panel we did was really turning more towards case studies of the success of our pro owners. So those are people within the Outdoorsy marketplace that own a fleet of RVs. What did they experience and how are they thinking about buying more vehicles and how do they utilize the marketplace to maximize rentals? So that's a little bit about the past. As I mentioned, we will make available all of the links from past panels. You can go back and listen to those or read the transcript. But today's panel, which is super exciting, we're going to take a look at where does success start? What does it look like to get off the ground as a new owner on Outdoorsy? I'm not sure if you guys all know on the Zoom call today, but 90% of people that list their vehicle on Outdoorsy own a single RV. So great place to start, right? We're going to be diving into all of the questions an RV, campervan, motorhome owner goes through when first renting out the vehicle. So what are the best startup practices? What are the best marketing practices? How do I make my vehicle stand out from other listings? Tips and tricks to achieve like maximum rental success. So if you guys that have joined us here today are thinking, how easy is this really? Or how difficult is this really? To lean into a committed side hustle where you're not just making passive extra income, but you're really considering this as a secondary source of income for you or your family. And is it worth it? And how do I do it? Then this panel or this conversation here is the place for you today. We've brought together several of our most entrepreneurial owners to address these questions head on, which is great. So it's going to be jam-packed, tons of insight. We talk about that. We're trying out something new for the first time, which is a polling feature, because we want to get a much better sense of who's dialing in, who's tuning into this content, so that we can customize it for you. We do these once a month. So before I introduce the panelists, I think Claire is going to steer me in the right direction on communicating the poll, any admin things that I forgot or missed out to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jason, Christian, his partner, Kayla, and also Alex.
All sounds great. Thanks so much, Jen. And yep, so just a few housekeeping items. I'll launch the poll in just a minute. So that'll help us get to know you a little bit better, like Jen mentioned. Feel free to participate. You're not required to, but would love to hear a little bit more about each of you. And then just remember, please keep your microphone on mute during the conversation. It helps us to focus just on the panelists. I'll be going through and putting people on mute if you accidentally go off, but please just remember to keep that. And I think those will be our main things. If you have questions, please feel free to either enter them in the Zoom chat, or you can email them to panels@outdoorsy.com. We'll spend a first portion of the time focusing on some prepared questions, and then we'll kick it over to audience Q&A. So feel free to throw those in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. If we see some really good ones coming up that we aren't able to get to during the chat, we'll try and follow up on those after. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We're excited. And Jen, I'll kick it back over to you for intros.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. Okay, cool. Super proud to be able to introduce our panelists here today. I think I had mentioned yesterday when I mention your name or talk about you guys, would you mind just sort of raising your hand so that people that are dialing in to the call, I keep wanting to say call. I wonder what is the new verb? People dialing into the Zoom panel will be able to identify who you are. So maybe give a wave out here. But the first person I want to introduce you to is Jason Sibley Little. He is an awesome guy. I've known him for 5 years. He's kind of technically just starting out as a co-founder of Simple Campervan on Outdoorsy platform. He's got a camper van, 2 Class Bs. He's buying another one. He's highly rated in the marketplace. He's based in San Francisco, California. He has a lovely wife. And they went basically from full-time van living to pretty serious off-road expeditions. And because of all of that, spent a ton of time behind the wheel. So they decided to start a company or business called Simple Camper, and he's really been able to dive in and blend his personal enjoyment in life with his business progress. Big thing to point out here for a unique factor about him, and I'm going to do this as we introduce each one of the panelists because we try to bring a broad range. So for everybody dialing in, if you want to know, hey, who's the person I want to talk to? Perhaps you're an owner based in California and you want to get some market insights specific to that state, then Jason would be your guy. But another superpower for Jason is he really understands the product. He really understands wheel-based software. And he's got a lot of experience with overlander vehicles and boondocking. So if you're new to a business concept, you're based in California, you're interested in boondocking, or you really want to get a deep dive on wheelbase, then Jason's the guy that you might want to pay attention to, and or reach out to him afterwards. So I don't know where you are, Jason, in my gallery view. Great. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Okay, cool. Next, the next couple that I'd love to introduce you to is Christian and his partner, Kayla Manzano. They're the co-founders of Discover Campervans, and they started with Outdoorsy this past summer. They have 2 campervans, also highly rated. They're based in Denver, Colorado. And I love this love story as well. Perhaps maybe because I also share a little bit of the background, but they met in college and they bonded over their passion for music and traveling. They've been married for 5 years, and they went on a trip to Iceland and spent a week traveling around the island in a camper van. And that's where they really fell in love with sort of van life and like this way of spending time in life and on the planet. So taking all of those factors together, they shared the idea of how they could convert their knowledge, convert an Airstream, and build a business around this sense of adventure. They are, I think, less than 6 months, so definitely less than a year, less than 6 months. They've grown their rental business from 1 to 3 camper vans. They've made over $60,000 since listing their first vehicle on Outdoorsy in May. They've done over 300 booked rental days. And I think they're between like $1,000 and $1,500 per rental. So if that appeals to you, please make sure that you recognize who Christian and Kayla are and shout out to them as we go through. Again, I don't know where you guys are yet. I'm gonna have to figure out how Okay, great. There you are. Great. Hi. We're going to dive into getting some questions to you guys very shortly, but let me just take one last minute to introduce everybody to Alex Lindamood, who started last year. Super interesting background here because his unique superpower is coming from the hotel and guest experience world. So he's got 2 Class Cs. I know he's got a list of buying a couple of more soon. Also extremely highly rated, which is no surprise given his 20 years or 16 to 20 years working as a hotel manager in some of like the world's most notable hotel chains. So he decided to take that knowledge and background and move it into the new travel guest experience, or the new popular travel guest experience world of outdoor travel and RV rentals. And he is based in, I believe, DC. And his company is called AdventureSome. So let me just introduce Alex and see if he can wave to everybody as well. You are with us, right, Alex? I'll have to scroll through hundreds of pictures.
I am here with you, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Alex, I know we'll be wearing headsets and looking very professional. So that's also another unique attribute to check out. Okay, so we're going to get into the topics for today, but just quickly, I'll introduce myself. My name's Jen Young. I'm one of the co-founders of Outdoorsy. I'm going to be moderating the discussion today with these fabulous people and panelists. I just want to take a minute. I do this every time because it's meaningful to me, and just to say thank you. You know, we started this company by literally living in an Airstream in a Denali truck, and we literally traveled and personally met almost every RV rental business and tried to, where they would allow us, work out of their office or take them for dinner or lunch, get to know them. We started off doing meetups in people's living rooms. And I'm just really grateful to, be able to build relationships with you guys throughout the past 5 years since doing that. Our whole company has continued to truly learn from the RV owner community, and we base and build a lot of our product and customer experience around it. So without your insights and without your business acumen, Outdoorsy really would not be what it is today. So thank you to this incredible community of entrepreneurial minded people. And in particular, our panelists today, thank you very much. I believe there's a pretty bright future ahead for all of us, and we all hustle. So let's dive into today's topic and what, more importantly, the future holds. Again, reminding everybody, enter your questions in the chat function, and we're going to go in and out of questions, and then also pooling live Q&A as we get it, and asking the panelists that. Okay, cool. So I think I mentioned we're covering like, what are the steps to get started? What are the tips for building a good, successful rental company? What's the marketing strategies and tactics I should be doing? And how do I set some realistic expectations around what I'm going to make and how much effort it's going to take me? So kicking it off, maybe Jason, we'll have you start with this one. Many of our owners really view their vehicle as their baby, their investment. They bought it, they fell in love with the living room or the outside shower or the outside barbecue. And it's hard to contextualize that this would actually be, a moment where they could watch it drive away for the first time without them being in the driver's seat. Can you talk a little bit about what led to your decision to list your vehicle on Outdoorsy? And then what was the most valuable lesson you learned from that process?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we invest money in these, and they're kind of a piece of us, these camper vans or RVs. So I agree. It is very difficult, that first rental, sending it off, like trusting that they're going to take care of it and not damage it and, treat it well. But I think for me, what was the deciding factor, which is kind of, one of the original reasons that Outdoorsy started, was that my camper van was just sitting most of the time. We traveled probably every other weekend. So during the week, I was taking public transportation to my job. So my camper van just sat there doing nothing. So that was kind of my deciding factor to get rolling with renting it, for sure.
Yeah, earning income is very compelling, right?
Right.
What was the biggest learning? Like, what did you, so great. So you watched it drive down the road. Like what did you think in terms of how you needed to get organized, or, what was the biggest learning from that process?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and it took a few rentals to kind of get this down, but was just understanding the processes and making sure you have them in place. If you're going to be doing this consistently, you need to have your turnover processes, your cleaning processes, how you communicate with renters, how you follow up with renters, all your processes in place so that you can replicate it and you're not, chasing your tail around trying to do all these things inefficiently. So I think that would be the one thing to definitely put in place.
That's really good advice. And I think we're going to probably dive into a little bit more around what are the specifics of those processes in a minute. But I just wanted to ask Christian and Kayla, because I think you guys had a different experience, right? When you bought your van, you knew you were going to rent it out. What was that first, what led to your decision to list your RV or camper van? Did you go in expecting and knowing how much money you were going to make right off the bat?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having us on here. We were viewers on the first March panel, and to be on this one is pretty full circle. So thank you.
Thank you.
So like you introduced before, we did this awesome trip to Iceland, and we were so excited about this whole camper van lifestyle. And we luckily live in Colorado that's just equally as beautiful. And we were like, we have to give this experience to people that are even Coloradans, but especially people that want to come experience Colorado. It's a very road trippable state. There's a lot to see and a lot to do at once, and a camper van is that perfect vehicle in our minds. So we knew from the second we got back from Iceland, we were like, we need a camper van, one for ourselves, but two, to give that experience to other people. So we bought a Ram ProMaster and we completely custom built it ourselves, and took us about 3 months. Definitely when you're like screwing in each, screw into the ceiling, you get a little emotionally attached to the vehicle, and you're like, that first rental that you give off, you're like, oh my gosh, I just spent months, getting this together, and I just hope they take care of it just as much as we would. And thankfully most renters do. But yeah, I say like the first kind of lesson that we learned is just emotionally detached from the vehicle. Things will break on it and it'll be heartbroken when you have to go fix it, but you have to know that it's there to do a job. And not only is it to give you additional income, but it's also to provide people with an awesome vehicle and an awesome experience. And you just have to know that's the end result, and kind of just letting your baby go off and do its job is kind of the one thing that we learned immediately.
I love that. And also, look, if that vehicle goes off and does its job really well, then there'll be another baby that you'll probably be able to buy as a result of it. So, there's a future path.
Now we have 3 babies and our families keep growing.
We got a whole family of camper vans. Sorry, Jason, did you want to add something? Did I just cut you off there?
No, I was going to say multiple of them. Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but getting over that first hurdle is like a big thing, right? And for people that are dialing in, maybe it isn't just the first one. Maybe, maybe it's like a process. That is the process that they just have to just learn, accept, and detach, and recognize that it's there to do a job, and there'll be other ones down the road. Alex, curious to hear from your perspective, particularly because you come from a hotel guest experience background. When you went through that first process, or your decision to list and to buy an RV, what was the most valuable lesson you learned from it?
You know what? I think that I would agree mostly with what Jason said. To echo almost verbatim off of him, is I learned processes are 100% critical to this being successful. Almost all of the renters that I've had are first-time renters. So not only do I have to have a process for myself and how I run the business, but I learned I have to train the customer and the renter how to use the RV. They want to be confident on the road. So that was the biggest lesson for me, is to make sure that they understand what they're doing, that they feel confident, and everything will go a lot smoother as a result.
And so I'd love to, particularly because of your hotel experience. So where did you source processes? Like what did you lean on for insights around what those processes should be? Were there, in particular, I mean, I'll do a shout out for Outdoorsy. Were there any places or destinations or people that you went to within Outdoorsy to lean on for developing some of those processes?
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but Outdoorsy does have like a Facebook group for owners. Literally the most valuable tool you could use. All of my processes I got from looking at other owners' posts and comments from other posts, and just I went back through hundreds of posts just to see what could happen when my rentals went out. And, you know, best case, worst case, you know, what happens if you do this way or that way. Super helpful. I highly recommend leaning on it just every day.
Cool. Thank you for that. I think there's a ton of information, both just in terms of the people that are part of the community and also tools. We'll, as I said at the beginning, we'll make a list of all of the assets that people can reference. But we just completed an RV owner's handbook. I think it's like 60 pages. I mean, couldn't be more information and process for somebody first starting out, as in that document. But just depends on, you know, how people learn and like to absorb, whether that's, you know, through conversation or reading documents or figuring it out online. Cool. So then maybe, you know, for people that are just joining, that are considering, they're in the consideration set, they don't own an RV, but they're thinking about buying one because the whole world's kind of going crazy for them and they're thinking about it. Let's do a quick round robin on what you guys think is the key attribute or characteristic that you need to have to start a rental business. Like what's that one characteristic that if you got this or you can learn it, you're likely to be successful?
Yeah, I'll start. I would say one of them is being very patient and kind of customer focused. That's what's going to help you grow on Outdoorsy. You know, is having a good customer experience leading to good reviews, return business. So being patient, you know, helping the customer as much as you can, I think is a good attribute.
I would say
for life.
yeah. I would say focusing on just getting involved in the camping and the outdoor world, just so you can understand how people are going to be experiencing your vehicle. That way you can give them better recommendations on what activities to do or where to sleep at night. So if you just get involved, you can then transfer on that knowledge to your renters.
That's a really great point about being passionate for, I mean, look, for anybody in small business or entrepreneurship or business, really, passion definitely is one of the key attributes. But what are your thoughts, maybe Christian, Kayla, or even Alex for this? What are your thoughts about, like, let's just say you're not super outdoorsy, but you're passionate about hospitality service or renovations. Do other passions translate into being key attributes for running an RV rental business?
I was going to say, Alex comes from hospitality, so you can definitely speak on that being a huge asset to you.
Well, I'll give you guys a fun fact. I think it's funny, like with Jason and Christian and Kayla, they probably have a lot more of their renters and customers who are going on camping trips. I would say only half of my customers are going camping. Half of mine are just replacing the need for the airline and use of a rental car or hotel, and they're just combining that into the RV because they want to be able to still travel. But I think the most important thing that you need to have if you're going to do this is to be able to listen to the customer, what they're wanting, and encourage them to be able to do that. Almost all of the customers and renters that I've experienced are very anxious because they've never done this before. This is new to everyone. So just being out there to encourage them, doesn't matter where you came from or your background, as long as you can encourage them, listen to them, and help them, give them the training wheels to start their rental for their RV or camper, I think you'll be successful.
Can I chime in there too?
Yeah, please do. I love that insight. Please go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was going to kind of go off what Alex and Christian and Kayla were saying, but the owner really sets the tone for the trip as well. So, you know, if you're very flat handing it off, like that's kind of not a great experience. But if you are excited about their trip, you know where they're going. You're like, oh my God, Yosemite, Half Dome, you're going to love it this time of year. You really understand what they want to get out of this trip, because it's not just a rental car. It's a whole experience that they're going on. So if you can set that tone early on, like your renters are just going to absolutely love you as well.
I love that phrase. The owner really sets the tone. You know, one of the things, not to get too ahead of ourselves, I think we've got this planned for future content, but one of the things that we're focused on for 2021 is the key exchange moment. We're calling it key exchange. Shout out to everybody that's dialed into the call today. If you've got a better phrasing for what we call the moment where a renter comes and picks up your vehicle, as I said, we're calling it key exchange, but it's also sort of more commonly called the pickup and the drop off. But when we think about that key exchange moment, you know, you just expressed it so beautifully, Jason, that the owner really sets the tone. And how can our marketing and our community team build more materials and training process, and also just good guidelines around how to make that a momentous moment? Because it really is. It's like a brand wow moment for you guys, for us, for all of it. That was such good insight about being passionate. And that doesn't mean that you have to be, you know, an expert mountaineer, rock climber, or a cyclist, or a fisherman. You can just be passionate about, you know, helping your customer. So great. Thank you for that. Okay, cool. So let's dive into competition. How do you guys set yourself apart from competition in your state or in your local market? How do you even start thinking about it? Do you consider your competition somebody that has similar types of vehicles or similar pricing, or just is in your nearby neighborhood? Jason, you want to kick us off on that?
Sure. Well, I think there's always more room for camper vans out there. There's plenty of people who want to join in this. So I welcome more camper vans into our market. But I think something that we're doing to kind of set ourselves apart, and I think it is important that you kind of define yourself, but we're, like Alex said, like 90% of his customers are new, and that's very similar to what ours are. So what we're really trying to do to make ourselves unique is make the process incredibly simple, so everything's taken care of. You know, what everyone's been saying is, you know, we explain things really well, they feel comfortable. Make it as simple of a process as possible. And that's kind of the one area that we focused in on as our kind of like key thing for the business, hence Simple Camper. We want to make it very simple. So that's how we're defining ourselves.
So start with the company name then, or start with your listing names, right? Like, actually, that's a great point. Everybody knows the importance of the listing page, right? That's where your photo gallery of all of your images, your description about what makes your vehicle unique. Great place actually to even inject the tone of the kind of experience you would want. But going back to your point, Jason, about you know, how you describe yourself, really focus in on that headline, right? The description of how you're describing your camper van. Throw in the adjective that best describes the advantage that your vehicles or your service have over someone else on that listing page or within your city.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So Christian or Kayla, what do you guys do to set yourself apart from competition?
So I think first off is the camper van. I think camper vans are really hot right now and kind of front of mind for a lot of people. So that's great, just having that. I think the fact that we custom built ours is really unique. So it's not that standard like RV feel when you go in. It does feel more of a custom build. We also offer just like a one price. So we don't charge extra for cleaning fees, camping essentials, bedding, kitchen kit, miles. It's what you pay for the night is what you get, and you get everything for that. We don't like to do any add-ons because we just want it to be that one-stop shop, and this is the price you pay and this is what you get. But I think on the marketing part with the listing, I think we set ourselves.
Yeah, so with the listing, we've spent a lot of time getting good photos, and not just good photos, but also staged photos to show the experience of what people are going to feel like and how they're going to be interacting with the camper van. And that has really set our listing apart. But besides that, we've established a brand behind our camper vans, and that has been great for social. People then are also always posting stuff and tagging us, and then we repost their posts, and it's this whole circle where then their friends are reaching out to us and they want to rent our camper van. But having this brand has really shaped how the success for us.
Oh, that's a very robust answer to how to set yourself apart. Thank you. That was awesome. I love the call out to photos. Again, just wanted to part some advice or some guidance that we've gathered over the past few years. Photos are absolutely critical. In particular, 3 kinds of photos. 1, always take a picture of your vehicle in nature. Whether it's like, if you can only take a picture of your vehicle in your home, then just try and put the vehicle like near the grassy area of your house and a tree. Get a tree and grass or any kind of like nature background to your vehicle. Ideally, what you do is you get those pictures taken while you're out using it, or ask your renter to take a photo and give it to you. Those pictures that show your vehicle set up and outside, really important. And the other 2 big ones are the bedroom. Just make the bed, put down some sheets and a lovely duvet and some pillows. Even if you don't go through the hard yards of fully making the bed, just make it look made up. And then also the loo, the bathroom, the toilet, the shower. Try to make those images as attractive as possible. Those are 3 big areas for photos. But actually, Alex, you're the guy I really want to hear from. 16 years in hotel experience. What can you depart in terms of how to stand out from your competition?
Thanks for asking. I have to break this down 3 different ways here as far as the marketing. First of all, guys, I'm very impressed with the way that Outdoorsy brings customers to me. Once a customer knows they want to go on an RV vacation, I am super impressed how that customer comes to me. But that being said, the listing, as Jennifer just said, is super critical. Just as you get to know your customers and who's in your market and what's important to them, keep changing your listing to make it better and better. Whatever people are talking about, get those right pictures in there. The other thing, I say this just to help, but I've looked at other rental listings, and you want to make sure that your listing reads more about the experience your renter is going to have in your RV and how they can use the RV, and don't use your rule or your listing to put your rules of how what you do and do not want done to your RV. It's a little Motel 6 if you do that that way, and that's the way I would say you're communicating to your renters. So just be very careful with that. I will say the other thing that I do to set myself apart is just by listening to my renters. I know that they're very anxious when they first come to me. So I very much try to encourage them in what they're talking about in when they're trying to rent the RV. I know I said this before, but I can't emphasize this enough. It is very important to really listen to them and encourage them in what they're doing. I typically hear that I'm the only owner that does that, and that's why the renter came back to me. In addition, on my own, I'm also working on my own content to help people understand what it's like to rent an RV, to kind of promote the idea of using an RV for vacation or for travel or for whatever purpose you may need to travel in an RV or a camper.
Oh, I could not agree more about the power of that unique content. Also, thank you, Alex, for the shout out to the team and the references there. We really do see ourselves as being the full service brand and partner for you guys. Hopefully also everybody's noticing in our chat function here, the many people from the marketing and community team are live in that chat. So again, just drawing your attention to that, ask questions, reference resources. But going back, Alex, to the point around unique content and content, I mean, not only is it critical, by the way, it also helps your particular listing or your vehicle rank better in search results. The more content you have, the more unique content and the more helpful content. But also, just like what Christian and Kayla were saying in the answer before about the importance with photos is it can all be repurposed, right? So when you're thinking about building an asset, whether it's photo or content, don't just think about doing it for that one moment, but how can you then repurpose it in other ways? So for content, you write that on your listing page, it helps you rank better in search results. Maybe you also include that as like your intro email, or you copy and paste it as your response to the renter so that they, understand what like the key messages are. Maybe then that becomes part of your own like one pager handbook that you leave in the vehicle. Maybe you use that if you have a local reporter who is doing a story, and then you can send off, oh, here's a little bit about my business and, recommendations I make. So I'll stop there. Sorry. I get a little too excited once I start thinking about marketing opportunities. But I think the point on unique content, building out that in terms of describing the experience for yourself and then using that for you to brand and market your own listing is really important. Cool. Okay, so let's transition. I want to make sure, we usually do this a couple of minutes earlier, but these answers were so great. Let's transition now to audience questions, people that are dialing in to our panel today. I think we've got something like 80 great questions. If we can't get through all of them, I remind you that we will be following this up with links to our follow-up materials. And one of those follow-ups is we do get all the panelists to answer all of the questions. And then we submit that in the link. So make sure that you look out for the follow-up materials to these sessions themselves. But let's start with like a really kind of cool, easy one. I love this. I'm curious to know the answer. This is for everybody. What's one piece of advice you wish somebody would have given you when you first started?
I can start with that one. I would say that having either a business partner or some sort of support is really important. I think starting any business is really difficult. Even starting a side hustle can be very time consuming and emotional. So I think either working with someone or having a group of people that know what you're doing and you can confide in is really important to help you grow maybe your side hustle into a full-time thing and into a booming business. So teamwork,
right? Like what we have here today. Totally agree. Christian, Kayla, what do you think?
So I want to echo the establishing processes early on. I want to give a shout out to the new feature on the Outdoorsy app where you can upload photos right before a vehicle goes out and then right after it comes back. And that has been huge for us because we would always forget to do that. And a couple times something broke and we didn't have proof and it was just a bummer. But now, since it's on the app, we start the key exchange, take all the photos, and we always remember to do that. So yeah, processes is always key.
It saves you hundreds of dollars when you have proof.
Oh, I love that shout out. Now, any quick tip here that you would give the guys or give the team member or give people that are joining in, any quick tip on how you can get that done faster so that it's not taking up a good amount of time while you're actually greeting your renter and like you're in that sort of key exchange moment? Do you do that quickly before?
Yeah, so I actually, how I start off is I give a quick tour of the van and show them how to use everything. And then as they are putting in all their stuff into the van, I go around the van and take all the photos and they see me taking the photos. So they also remember, oh, Christian was taking the photos as we were there, and that was the condition of the vehicle. And I just do it as they're loading up all their stuff.
Good classic example of multitasking. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, Alex, what is the one piece of advice that you wish you had been given before starting this business?
So I lucked out, but I almost made a huge mistake. I was going to get a bigger Class C than what for my first RV, I was going to get a bigger Class C. And if I had gotten that one, it would not have rented as well and would have not brought in the same amount of revenue. So the biggest piece of advice is absolutely make sure you understand in your own market, you understand what kind of rig will help you the best to meet your goals for revenue. My market, I'm sure, is completely different from Jason and Christian and Kayla's, but absolutely understand it, because the worst thing is obviously not being able to make the revenue you want. So it's more about focus on what will sell over what you would prefer to have as your RV or rig.
Love that piece of advice. And also another quick shout out, because as I mentioned, we've got the Outdoorsy marketing and community team members in our chat and facilitating this whole session. One of the things that they'll either link in the chat or we'll follow up with is we've done a content series on how we recommend you go about identifying what is the best vehicle for you to rent and what's the best price for you to rent it at in your individual market based on what we're seeing is competition and also renter demand in your local area. So we'll give you guys a link to follow up to that content. So that's awesome. Okay, so here's another question again for everybody. I love these questions for everybody. So storage. So you guys sort of range from having one vehicle to now a couple, 3 or 4. We've got a lot of dealers in our pro community that might have, gosh, like anywhere from 50 to 400 vehicles as part of their fleet. Those are our dealers that operate, that use our wheelbase software, which is our fleet management dedicated software that Jason knows a lot about, by the way. So another shout out if you're interested in growing to a bit more of a significant software versus the Outdoorsy dashboard, then reach out to Jason on wheelbase. But anyway, for those of you that have a couple of vehicles, what do you guys do for storage? So when they're not being rented, are you just like cramming them in the driveway and, running around the park, running around your neighborhood block to like move the vehicles when the parking is expired? Or did you start off doing that? Or what's your solution today? What does it cost?
Yeah, well, it definitely started like that. So it was trying to find parking garages, if I could fit. As my fleet grew, that became more difficult. And the condo association that I lived at really did not appreciate the vehicles being parked there. So very quickly we had to find more of a commercial type setting. So I think initially you can definitely get away with, especially if you have one vehicle, it's like in your driveway or on your street, you can definitely get away with it. But once you start having more of a significant fleet, even just 2, I think having a dedicated space also to decrease risk and liability is important. So you can find parking, like lots, industrial lots everywhere to park as long as they're fenced in. I think that's a good place to look.
Also, another great place to look is going back to the Facebook owners group. Because look, if you're in a city or a town and you've got another owner that's nearby, pool your resources, share your costs. I mean, I know that we're all, what do they call it? Co-opetition, but we're also part of the same community, right? And we're in the early years of building up this marketplace. So where we can support each other to grow larger share is really important. So I direct you to Facebook owners group. Christian and Kayla, I think I saw you conferring with one another on what your best storage solution was.
I was saying his head was disappearing because he was backing up too far. It was disappearing. Yeah, so we actually got really spoiled. Thankfully, our partners that we're in business with, Katie and Jerem, shout out if you guys are listening. They actually have a commercial office out near the Denver airport, which was huge when we first started because we had a place to build the vans because we were doing them custom. And thankfully we've been able to operate out of their existing office, and that also comes with a parking lot. So thankfully we kind of got really spoiled right off the bat with having that not be an issue of storage. Because like Jason was saying, we also live in a condo, and there are a lot of rules about parking a ton of vans in that community. So yes.
Great answer for that. Alex, what about you?
Oh my God. That is so funny. I live in a high-rise building. I live outside Washington, D.C., but I'm right by Dulles Airport. So two things. Luckily, my RVs have been rented out so much that has not been an issue. But when it has been, I have had to do exactly what Jason was talking about. Luckily, I have a lot of friends in the hotel business, so they're either parked in hotel parking lots where people are doing me a favor, or off airport parking, which I have near me. So it's been a challenge, but I'll figure it out once my leases run out.
I love that you were in a high-rise apartment. I'm just going to do a quick little interjection here and like share a little bit about myself and the history of this company. When Jeff and I moved out of the Airstream and the truck, our Outdoorsy's first offices were based in San Francisco, and we ended up getting a rental apartment, like a floor in a house in Mill Valley, which is just over the Golden Gate Bridge. For those of you guys that aren't in California, very, very, very hilly. And back in those days, we're still trying to figure out like, what is the owner experience like? So we bought a Mercedes Coachman, and it ended up on my plate for doing the key exchanges and managing the whole rentals, which I love to do because it really helped, improve some like first thoughts around marketing. But anyway, the driveway was so steep. And I think we did something like 30 rentals over, like a 6-month period. So it was constantly busy. And what I used to have to do is I was too afraid to do the key exchange or the pickup in the steep driveway. So I'd have to drive it down and go and park it in like a nearby grocery store parking lot. And that's where I would do the key exchanges because I felt like we all had more room and it was easier. Anyway, little fun fact. And I do like getting into the nitty gritty about like the challenges of what it's like to actually pull these things off. I think it goes back to what all the panelists were saying earlier. Be willing, be patient, be excited about what you're doing, and know it will get better, and know there's a bunch of people that you can have real talk with that will help you find your way. So that's really cool. Okay, let's switch over to something a little bit more inspirational, travel inspirational, as we're sort of in the midst of more lockdowns in some states. Can you guys share with us what's been your favorite rental experience so far? Like, what's the rent or the person that just sticks out?
Man, I have so many of those. I'll talk about actually the most recent one that just came back, but obviously there's a ton of stress going on. The news is just like a lot of chaos. So I had 2 younger renters going on their first camper van experience. They were actually driving to Minnesota, I believe, but very nervous, not very sure about camper vans, just the environment in general. They were kind of freaked out about. They took about a 10-day trip, came back, and their shoulders were lower. Their hair was messed up. They were dirty from camping, but they just had the biggest smiles. They were relaxed. Like even driving for 10 days straight can be the most relaxing thing. So seeing someone go from just like frantic in a city to coming back and being chill and like talking about the Grand Canyon and this and that, it was great to be able to give someone relief with what we do. So that was great.
Yep, I love that. But before COVID hit, one of the things I used to talk about all the time was disconnect to reconnect. Reconnect with yourself, nature, your friends, family, the things you want to do. Obviously, we're all a little disconnected now, totally. But that now we're sort of moving more into our brand being a place that can facilitate like the road to wellness, because that's what these experiences are all about. And I love that the owners actually know that like that's the real thing that they're selling, if I could even use the word selling, but like that's the real thing they're providing. So cool. Alex, what can you talk about one of your best renter experiences? And then interestingly, how does that stack up to the hotel experiences you were used to being a part of doing 16 years for some of those big hotel brands like Marriott, I think?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my most memorable experience. So I know that a lot of people, as they're renting their RV, they're going to worry that something will happen to it, something always happens. I would tell every single renter something happens. But I did have one of my RVs, like a part of the plumbing system blew up. I had to get a repair for it in the middle of Arkansas. But I was just like hysterical, and I was just so thankful to this renter. They were such a great person. They're like, oh my God, I'm having a great vacation. This is just part of the adventure. And like, they just really, I remember that very well because I used a lot of my skills from the hotel in just, telling them I understand how it was. And we all cooperated and had a little adventure of getting the water system fixed. But it was a very similar experience to the hotels. And it was the first time that happened. Stuff like that happens all the time. You just deal with it. It's part of the business, and you get through it, and it helped me for the next time. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Oh, it answered it perfectly. I was going to thank you for, I'm not sure of course you didn't do this on purpose, but I was going to thank you for talking about an experience that might not have been considered, like knock it out of the ballpark. Everything was perfect. It was so easy. I made the most amount of money I ever had because, Outdoorsy has tried since it first built, since its first few pages of copy on the website. We have always tried to talk about celebrating the mishaps. Now, celebrating might be too strong of a word, but the whole point about this kind of rental experience is that not everything will go right. And that is the part of the beauty of the process and the beauty of the experience, right? I mean, think back, guys, to your own times when you were out with your friends or your family and something broke down or went wrong, or the awning fell off, or like you were delayed by a day, or you were too late to get into the campground, or you like spilt the coffee and it was your last coffee. And then everybody in the family had to figure out how we were going to get coffee. I mean, those are the moments that like you remember forever and for so long. And like, that's part of a great experience. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that resonates with you guys too, Jason, Krista, and Kayla.
Yeah. Can I say, sorry, I just want to chime in. Yeah. Like Alex was saying, like things are gonna go wrong. Like, we're talking about all these different systems that are in a shaking, vibrating vehicle, and like things go wrong. It's how you deal with it. So being patient with the customer, but then also to give a shout out to Outdoorsy as well. Like in terms of like, I've had a rental that like was disabled midway through a trip, and then being like, Outdoorsy support, like I need some help here, and then just busting their team busting butt to find a replacement for my renter, like within hours. Like it's insane. And like something that, going also back to like having a team, like even a digital team, like I couldn't have found a replacement in a couple hours, much less dealt with the issue. So like leaning on Outdoorsy as well, like the supports are there. It's really helpful.
Thank you for that, Jason. One of our core brand values for the company, I remember, but this is, Jeff and I were on a plane, actually. We were on a plane and we were first starting the company. We're like, if we're going to start a company, like what are going to be the values that everybody in the business has to live up to? And the first one is put the customer first. And I think number 3 was always do the right thing. And we do that. And we demonstrate it. That's what makes our company cool, is that the people and the character of the people that work in our business exemplify those values. Maybe actually we can get Jessa, who runs our community function, and I think is on chat. Maybe we could get her even linked to that company values page, so you guys can be familiar with it and keep us accountable. But thank you for saying that, Jason. We have a phone number and we're always available. And on our pro side of the business, on this, like on our Outdoorsy single owner and like 3 vehicle owners, which we're calling pro, and then also our dealers, we are looking at increasing our team resources and hours that you can get directly in touch with somebody specific to service owners. So we're only investing more in those areas. Anything that you would add there, Christian or Kayla?
I definitely second what Alex said with, the things breaking down and just having awesome renters. You just get so lucky in that situation. But we did have a pretty cool situation this year. Obviously, because of COVID, we know that a lot of weddings were canceled, and we had a couple where their wedding got canceled, and they were like, you know, let's go. They were from Florida. They were like, let's book a trip to Colorado, do this road trip and get married on a mountain somewhere. And I was like, those are my people. Like that's what a cool story. And we would be in that same situation if we did that. And they reached out to us. They were just a regular booking, and we could see that they were from out of town. They really hadn't done anything in Colorado before. And we have this whole knowledge bank of years of camping and years of doing activities in Colorado. So we offered them to like, hey, do you want to like jump on the phone and we'll kind of give you a rundown of what to do and things to do. And we ended up doing like an hour video call with them, like planning an entire itinerary, 8-day itinerary for them, like go to this, like use this place to go shower, you know, because they wanted to like boondock as much as possible. So giving them all these tips and tricks, like do this whitewater rafting, you know, take a bike tour this place, and oh, get married in this mountain, you know, type of thing. And it was just such a cool experience because we got to give them so much of our knowledge. And I love doing that. That's kind of my favorite part of the business. But yeah, so we did that. They had an awesome trip. Their photos are stunning. I know Outdoorsy has posted them just because it's like, what an epic, like getting married on top of a mountain and like with a camper van and backpacks. It's super cute, but that was kind of really cool experience for us.
I love hearing about renter stories. Seriously, it's so great. And I'm just now noticing the time. We have 3 minutes left. I do not want to wrap up this particular panel conversation. It's been so awesome. I'm going to try and squeeze in an extra minute or two over time. We'll see if we lose people from that, but there's still so many questions left to get through, guys. So we'll follow up and we'll get your written answers, and to everybody, we'll share them out. But one more sort of like business question, Jason, for you. What's the best way to set up an outdoorsy small business? Is that doing an LLC or a DBA?
I did an LLC just to kind of protect myself legally. I think that also it just gives you a lot of flexibility, protections, and then I mean, you also get to enjoy all the benefits of, you know, having a business as well. All your, like, you know, your research trips that you can take your camper van on. That's a nice tax write-off too. So, yeah, I mean, I do an LLC just to be safe. That's what I did.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. And just in the spirit of very little time left, let's do a quick round robin on what are the things you include as part of your listing or your rental? So we call them add-ons in Outdoorsy. What are you including as part of your rentals?
So we
go for it. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so we include a kitchen bin, and the kitchen bin, it's nice because we actually have 2 of them, so we can swap them out very easily. But a kitchen bin has all the pots, pans, plates, silverware, cups, all that stuff you need for cooking. Then a little propane stove. The camper van has a sink, but bedding is included. 2 camping chairs and a camping table is also included. And we just tell people that all they really need to show up is some food and their clothes.
Right? Yep. And again, a tank of gas.
Yeah.
Alex. I'm curious to know if you put in the cute little hotel soaps.
So it's funny. I thought that I would need to do that, but most of my customers are very enthusiastic about bringing their own. I'll tell you, I started to put toilet paper into the RVs.
Smart.
And people are so excited to buy RV toilet paper that I stopped doing it because I didn't want to steal that joy away.
Really?
But what do I? Yes. So I obviously include the sewer pipes, you know, gloves for that. You know, the little thing that you put the sewer pipe on so it doesn't lay on the ground. Electrical cord. In the kitchen, I have pretty much everything you'd need to make meals, including grill tools. One thing that I learned from the Outdoorsy Facebook group that has worked really well, I don't put sheets on the bed. I put a mattress pad and a fitted sheet just so they don't sleep on the mattress. But other than that, most people feel my customers want to bring their own stuff at this point in time due to ongoing issues.
Oh, right. Of course. Yes. What a great point, right? I mean, what you pack in the RV could be different for you today versus next summer. Good thing we'll be doing these series or doing these Zoom panels every single month, so we can continue to track, like, how is that changing? I am really so sad to have to wrap this up because I have loved the energy on this call. I've loved all of the specific examples. Just so totally grateful to the panelists for joining us. Jason, Christian, Kayla, Alex. I mean, your stories were excellent. Your examples were specific. I don't know how anybody couldn't like get a much clearer and realistic sense about what it's generally like by listening to you. So thank you so much for joining the call today. I want to remind everybody that tuned in, we have oodles of resources. The marketing and community team is going to follow up an email linking you to all of those, as I mentioned earlier today, the RV owner handbook, the transcription of this video recording, the full Q&A of everybody that asked a question, which we will continue to get those answers from Jason, Christian, Kayla, and Alex, as well as posting all of this content in our Facebook owners group. There is a specific, we call them tiles, basically 4 little blocks that tell you where you can, what kind of resources you can access in that group. So it'll be posted there. And we will have another one of these panels happening next month. So please reach out to us and tell us what content you want to hear about, how we can continue to improve your experience, and know that we are just incredibly grateful for your guys' commitment to helping build this community. Also want to give a insane shout out to the whole marketing and community team, because even though I'm the person that gets to talk to you from like the most comfy looking camper van right now, this is just like not possible without the whole marketing team and everybody participating in the background and building the whole thing together. So Alex and Jessa and Claire and April and Andrea, to name a few, but there's lots more people. I would invite you to get to know them personally. They're wonderful human beings. Okay, guys, that is it. It's Thursday, and thank you so much. And hopefully you guys will dial back in for the next one. Again, thank you so much for panelists, and we'll see you later. Bye.